Hey guys, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my part 2 of my June reading wrap-up, my extremely late June reading wrap-up. And this is the ebook portion. If you missed it before, last week's video was all the physical books I read in June. I will leave a link in the description for you guys to check out in case you missed it. But yeah, these are all the ebooks I read back in June, way back in June. So yeah, I'm late to this, obviously, but you know, better late than never. So yeah, I may not have a ton of details about these books because, truthfully, I may not remember some stuff about some of these, so I apologize if it's sparse. I will have all my reviews of these books linked in the description so you can check out, like, content details and further thoughts that I probably will forget to mention today. Okay, we're just going to jump right in with the first book, which is Dark Shift by A.J. Skelly. This is kind of like a historical urban fantasy paranormal romance. This is a prequel to her The Wolves of Rock Falls series, so this is like a historical type one because we're back, I think it's during like the either early American frontier or like the, not frontier, it's not in the West. Actually I'm not sure where it's set. I got the vibe that it was set like on the East Coast, maybe like when like shortly after the Pilgrims landed, that sort of thing. There's no historical date mentioned. That's just the vibe I got from it. So, anyways, yeah, and in this one, the wolves. Okay, one of the pack's alphas is dying from a sickness, and his, like, I guess his daughter can't inherit the pack without a husband, so there's this competition for her hand in marriage, and these two friends are like going in the competition against each other, but there's some sticky things between them all. So yeah, I got this one for free, and I really enjoyed this. I've been wanting to read this series ever since it came out. It sounded really interesting. I'm very interested in like the urban fantasy, paranormal romance, those types of things. This series is definitely more on the paranormal romance side of things, which, if you don't know really the difference, basically both those genres are the same thing. But as one person I heard describe this, which really helped me out because I was always confused about these two genres, urban fantasy is when the plot is more focused and the romance is just like a subplot. Paranormal romance is when the romance is more focused and the plot is secondary. So yeah, it's basically the same things. It just depends on which is more focused. Yeah, more focused on is the actual genre name it is. So this one is more paranormal romance. So yeah, and this has to do with werewolves. And I really like this story. It was very short. It's kind of, I think it's a novella. I think that's what it is. Sorry, I'm just stumbling all over myself right now. But yeah, I did really enjoy this one. I read it in like a day. Pretty sure I finished it in one day. If not, it was two. And yeah, it was just very good, very well written, very fast paced. I still don't like one of the main guy characters, Richard. I don't care his reasoning behind stuff. He's still a jerk. So, anyways, and then I did read the first novel in this series, which is First Shift, and now we're in modern day. So we're in modern day time, and we're following Sam, who is a hidden werewolf, and Megan, who is a human. And Sam's had a crush on Megan for like forever. He loves her and stuff, but he can't really tell her that because he's a werewolf, and they're trying to hide the fact that there's werewolves living in, society nowadays. So, but that's all fine and dandy until he accidentally bites Megan, which does sound really weird. I was curious how that would work out. It's explained so that it doesn't sound really creepy. But yeah, he accidentally bites Megan and turns her into a werewolf. However, her werewolf status is temporary. She can potentially go back to being a human. So they enter a like fake marriage arrangement. As Megan and Sam were trying to navigate that and their feelings for each other and all that, somebody starts targeting Megan and trying to kill her. So that's really cool. She's getting a great crash course into werewolf society. And yeah, it is their romance and that plot from there. So yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. I gave Dark Shift 4 stars too. Did I say that? I have no idea. Anyways, I gave both of these books 4 stars. I like the characters in this series, and I like how the author has set up the multiple other couples that are going to be following in the rest of the series, or potential couples, I should say, and characters. I really like the character work. I really like her writing style. It's very simple, but very fast paced, and she has done the Werewolf Society really well and really detailed. And there's parts where it could feel like she's info dumping, but she crafts it in such a way that it makes perfect sense and it doesn't feel like just a bunch of info dumping. It's mixed in really well with like the romance and the tension between Sam and Megan. Thankfully, Megan doesn't stay mad at Sam forever like I feared she would, because he does accidentally turn her into a werewolf, and she didn't really want that. It's not like she knew that was a possibility anyways, but there is that. So she doesn't stay mad at him forever, which I was afraid would happen in this book, because that's usually how these types of books go. It's like someone does something by accident and like they spend like half the book mad at them, but no, thankfully we got that over with quickly, which was nice. What else can I say that I can remember? Oh, the Killer After Megan plot, this almost comes in like, I don't even know if it starts halfway through the plot. It's pretty much, we're pretty far into the book before somebody tries to start killing her. I thought that would happen way sooner. It didn't. Also, the beginning is extremely fast-paced. Like, literally in the first chapter, he accidentally bites her and she's turning into a werewolf. It's, like, really, really fast. It almost feels a little too fast in the first, like, between, like, 1 to 5 chapters, I'd say. But, yeah, because we're kind of just introduced to everything and we're just kind of bam, 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 things are happening. But the author did handle it very well, and we did get to slow down some and kind of get to know these characters, appreciate the werewolf culture she made, things like that. So it does slow down, but it does feel a little breakneck pace at the beginning, and I was like, okay, whoa, where are we going with this? I will also say this is the first book I have used very detailed in my, like, kissing part of my content section. This is the most detailed kissing I've ever read in a book. It's not overly, but it's like, okay, wow. Yeah, there is this thing that Lindsay has mentioned before in, like, marriage of convenience tropes where there's a lot of sexual tension and stuff. I haven't read a ton of those books, but yeah, I have noticed that. This one definitely has that as well. Very much so with the kissing. So if you're not a fan of, like, detailed kisses and stuff like that, this book may not be for you, or you may just have to skip a few sections. So it was like a little bit like, okay, this is unique for me. It didn't cross any lines for me. It was a little detailed. I was not expecting that. But yeah, there's like vague mentions of like tongue and stuff like that. So take that as you will. I was okay with it in the context of the story, but I know for a lot of people that could be way too much. And also, there is at least one fade to black between a married couple near the end of the book. I was fine with it because they were married. Nothing was described except for like the kissing beforehand and stuff like that. But even then, it was like pretty much just like they were kissing and they're done now. So I thought it was handled well. I don't mind fade to blacks as long as they're like not detailed at all and they're between a married couple. So yeah, that was fine by me. There was like a vague hint and maybe a second one, but it was pretty vague. So I don't even really know if that was. I think I marked it down in my contents that I think there was another one, but it's very vague. There's only one that's like, okay, you know what's going on. So, yeah, so take that in mind with whatever you're comfortable with in that level, but I would still call this clean. Okay, the next book I read for Chantel's Read Your Bookshelf Challenge. I was doing both sides in the month of June, and that was a sci-fi or a fantasy, so I picked this one for that prompt, and that is Truth by Molly Evangeline. This is Christian, non-magical, young adult fantasy. This is the first book of the McKillian trilogy. In this first book, okay, we follow McKillian. She's been living in this village her entire life. They're like stuck in this village. Nobody is allowed to leave or really enter. And it's very all mysterious and really weird why they're locked up there. But she desperately wants to know the truth of what is outside her walls. What is the truth of what people are telling her and stuff, because she doesn't feel like the guards and stuff are telling the truth about things. And then she meets this stranger who comes into her town one day because this is really rare. They're all locked in. And he tells her some things about Elohim, who is God in this universe, and she is extremely curious. So she ends up running away. She escapes her village and runs away, and it's her adventures from there, of finding out the truth behind Elam and what's going on with her village, and then just the greater war that's going on between light and darkness. So yeah, I have mixed opinions on this book. I gave it 3 stars. I also want to preface this as Molly Evangeline is a pen name for J.L. Knight, who wrote the Alien Chronicles. She wrote, under Molly Evangeline, she wrote the McKillian trilogy and another Christian historical series called Pirates and Faith before she wrote the Alien Chronicles. So these are like her very first 2 books. It definitely feels like it. The storytelling had this like Fellowship of the Ring aspect to it, where we're gathering a bunch of people, we're going on a quest type thing, not really to get anything, but to get to this one place. It had a very Fellowship of the Ring type esque plot to it. It was just a fun, light fantasy adventure. The problems I had with Truth were the characters. They were all fine, but I had no attachment to any of them. This was a problem. You'll hear more about this in my July reading wrap-up, but when I read the last 2 books, but I also had this problem throughout the whole series. I never connected with any of the characters. They were all fine, or horrible if they were the villains, but I never grew a connection to them. So there was that. There was also way too much repetition. We got introduced, like McKillian and other characters got introduced over and over again. It was kind of like, hi, I'm McKillian, you're so-and-so. Oh, hi, McKillian, I'm so-and-so, I'm from here. That happened, like, every other chapter, I kid you not. That drove me nuts. I started zonking out every time a new character showed up because it's like, oh no, we're gonna go through this again. Thankfully, she fixed that in the last 2 books, so I will give her points for that. But yeah, I did not like that. It was really repetitive. Also, descriptions of like places and stuff. I am not one for long descriptions of places and things like that. I tend to get really bored if they go too long or things like that. So descriptions are like really hard for me because too little and I have no idea what anything looks like around me, too much, and I'm sleeping now. So this one almost went into the almost sleeping category. I started zoning out at some of the descriptions of places. Thankfully, again, she trimmed those down in the next few books, so it definitely shows that she did learn as she was going on with her writing, obviously, because the Alien Chronicles don't have any of these problems. So but yeah, there was that. Also, there was one scene where McKillian is given a bow and arrow to shoot in a certain situation. And previously we were not shown that she knew how to use that. So I was just like, at first when the one character handed it to her, I was like, does she even know how to use that? And she's like, starts firing arrows and is like really competent. And then we're told that her father had taught her how to hunt and stuff like that. I think that should have been flipped around. We should have known that about her first before she shot an arrow. That would have been helpful. So, yeah. Overall, though, I did like the next 2 books better than this one, but it was a good start to a series, and I think when I was younger, when I was like a teenager, I would have really liked this series. So, younger readers, like older middle grade to like young adult, I think would really like this series. So, yeah, I would still recommend it. It's a really good series. Had some decent faith content that I really liked. Some of it was pretty typical for Christian fiction, Christian fiction as a whole. So I really don't have much to say on the faith content. There was one part I really did like near the end, but in regards to that, but yeah. Overall, really good series, and I would recommend it. Okay, the next book I read, I really liked this one. This is by a new author to me. I just randomly saw somebody that I am friends with on Goodreads. She had marked this book as to read. This was before it came out, and I saw it, and I was like, that cover is gorgeous, and I really want to read that. And it's also like a Christian paranormal version of Twilight. It's basically what it is without vampires. And that is Lightning Angel by Karen. I'm not quite sure how to say the author's name. I think it's Karen Daliath? Daliath? I have no idea how to say her last name. Gorgeous cover, by the way. I really like this cover. This is, like I said, it's a Christian paranormal romance in the veins of Twilight with no vampires. The paranormal aspect is our love interest character has, like, superpowers, basically. Yeah, in this one we follow Alexa. She has just recently had had to deal with the loss of her father due to blood cancer, and yeah, she just doesn't think God cares about her anymore, her personally anymore. She still thinks he exists and that he cares about other people, just not really her anymore. She's kind of just living her life in this kind of like fog. She's going through the motions of like showing her faith to her church family and just doing things of life. But then she makes a connection one day with a guy named Tristan in a bookstore, and then her conversation to him kind of just sparks some life into her. So yeah, she starts coming back to life little by little through her interactions with Tristan, and then a bunch of series of events happen. Things start trying to go badly for her, but whenever they do, when somebody tries to pick on her, bully her at school, some guy tries to be really creepy towards her, things like that, she always has this invisible protector. Things start happening that shows that she has an invisible protector, and yeah, things go from there. It does mention on the back of the book that she does try to take her life at one point. That is, yeah, in there, that is a trigger warning that she tries to jump off a bridge. Due to circumstances, she is stopped. So there are things like that, and I don't really want to say too much more. The back says plenty. It's a pretty long description, and I don't want to give anything else away. This book pleasantly surprised me. I went in with a risk with this one. I literally bought the ebook at full price, like shortly after it came out. I never do that. I mean, recently I've been buying more books at ebook price, but even that, it's after I've like read one or two books that are like, you know I like the author style or the series or something. So this was a risk because I'd never read this author before, never heard of this author before. And I was pretty much going on the like little sample I read on Amazon, the description and the cover. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. I really liked the characters. She fleshed out these characters really well. This does have a lot of similar story beats to Twilight, the very first book. So if you've read that book, you may recognize some of the similarities in some things, but it's definitely not a knockoff of Twilight, and I would say it's way written better than Twilight, for one thing. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. I really liked how she came up with, obviously Tristan is the love interest, and you know that he has supernatural powers. So I really liked how she came up with how he has these powers, and stuff like that, and then just how they affect him and things like that. I really enjoyed that. I just really liked this book. There were a lot of just really cute things. The romance was really cute. Alexa and her sister Cassie have a great relationship. I really like their sibling dynamic. There is one thing that is mentioned that Tristan kind of sort of, when he's first doesn't really know Alexa, he does kind of sort of stalk her a bit, trying to figure out why he feels this attraction to her. And so that is brought up in the book. They do discuss it. Characters do discuss it. And things like that, but it is kind of brought up. Tristan doesn't like to see it as he was stalking her, but he kind of sort of was, and in some cases it was actually helpful because he like saved her life and stuff like that, but in other cases it's kind of like this could be seen as problematic, but the characters do address it. They do talk about it, they do discuss it. So while that's kind of problematic in a way, they do address it. So I appreciated that. So it's kind of like, yeah, you might do some things problematically, like in a relationship or just with other people, but it doesn't mean you're a bad person, so to speak. It just means maybe you just handled something incorrectly. And because after that, they do set up boundaries of what he can and cannot do and stuff like that in regards to his powers and things like that. So that he doesn't end up being like a stalker again, and he does follow it, and I did appreciate that they discussed it. At least he never watches her while he sleeps, so he's one up on Edward Cullen, so we will leave it at that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. The second book supposedly is coming out later this year. She said at the end of this book, the author said that, but that was obviously if things go well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the second book on this, because I'm very curious to see where this goes, because things came up at the very end of this book that I'm like, okay, this is a problem. What are we going to do about it? She also said there would be more faith content in the second book. There is some throughout this story, mostly at the beginning and mostly at the end. There are little bits sprinkled throughout, and I did also appreciate that that Alexa only thought God didn't care about her specifically, as opposed to just, you know, bad thing happens, so then character decides to become an atheist sort of thing. None of that happened here, so I did appreciate that because that is such a cliche in Christian fiction. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Did get a little slow in the pacing around the 60% mark, but it did pick up again after that, so I will forgive it at that because the romance was super, super cute, and I really just enjoyed the story overall, and like just wild things just kept happening. It was just like, what is going on? But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book, and I'm eventually going to get a physical copy of this, and I'm looking forward to the second book. Okay, the next book I have to talk about, I don't have a ton to say about. And that is Hooked by Annette K. Larson, possibly. This gorgeous cover, by the way. This is a gorgeous cover. Love this. This is a non-magical fantasy fairy tale retelling of Peter Pan. So yeah, if you like fairy tale retellings but you don't like magic, this one doesn't have any in it. So it might be up your alley. And this one, we follow our main girl, who I don't know how to say her name, so she's just going to be main character. She has been kind of on the run from this guy who wanted to marry her when she was like 16. So she's been on the run for like many years from him, and yeah, so through a series of events, she's back in the same kingdom that she ran away from to get away from him. She's trying to just keep a low profile as a lady's maid to the princess, but you know, she used to be a noble, and her past catches up with her, and this Captain Huxley dude, the Huxley, I think that was his name, I'm not remembering anything, the captain dude, he shows up, wants her back, but also going on is the main character has started to kind of have feelings for one of the princess's guards named Falstone, and he's like a really nice guy and stuff, so things start happening from there. That's pretty much all I remember of the plot, sorry. And also, yeah, that's pretty much the plot. This was very interesting. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked how she retold Peter Pan in this. I think she kept almost all of the beats and like little nods to the original story in this story, which is very rare, because mostly Peter Pan, they usually like change a lot of things, obviously, to like make Peter Pan not a psychopathic murderer, which he technically is in the very original. But yeah, and I don't know, I just really like the changes she made, or the ways that it's like it reflects the original, but it's obviously not in a magical setting or anything like that. Yeah, I really enjoyed her changes to that. The captain dude is kind of mostly emotionally, mentally abusive towards our main character. He also, I think he probably would have gotten physically abusive too, but it didn't really last that long, so it didn't really get to that point, but he's a creep. Every time he opened his mouth, I wanted to throw him off a cliff because he is awful. He is an awful, awful human being. And yeah, I really liked Falstone. He was just a sweetheart, really nice, really protective guy. I really like that. This does only have the point of view of our main character, which I was not a fan of. I do like my romances and fairy tale retellings and stuff to have dual point of view. So generally speaking, there are some books that are the exception, but generally speaking, I like to have both, so it would have been nice to see Falstone's point of view, but then I think also if we had seen that, at least towards the end, it would have undermined some of the tension of our main character being, or getting out of her situation at the very end, so I can see the decision-making in that, but yeah, I wasn't entirely happy with it just being her point of view. So yeah, I'm very interested in picking up the next book, which is, I think, a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. So I'm very interested to see what goes on there. And yeah, I really enjoyed this also. And like I said before, if you don't like magic in your fairy tales, here's one without it, which is pretty rare for fairy tale retellings to not have magic in them unless they're like, you know, historical or contemporary or something. Okay, I'm just going to get these 2 DNFs out of the way. So the first one is A Kingdom Submerged by Deborah Grace White. I got like 7% in. I just don't think this author's writing style is for me. I was already having some issues. I think it was like 3 chapters. I was already having some issues with certain things that were popping up and things like that. This is like a mermaid human kingdom sort of story where, yeah, there's like dragons involved. I'm not quite sure much about the plot, but Really pretty cover. But I just couldn't get into her writing style. I've read one other book by this author and I liked it well enough, but I just don't think she's an author for me, so I DNF'd that one. And then I also DNF'd Princess of Secrets by A.G. Marshall. This is the second book in her series. I don't remember what it is. This is a fantasy fairy tale retelling of The Frog Prince. I read the first book of this series. I wasn't that impressed. And this one, I just started it. I think I got a little further into this one. I forget how far I got in. 14%? I forget. Anyways, I got a little further in than I did with Kingdom Submerged. And I just didn't care about the characters. The plot was mildly interesting, but I wasn't invested enough to want to continue. So I just dropped that one as well. I just don't think these two authors are for me. Lots of other people like their books, and I've heard Princess of Secrets is like the favorite in this particular series. It's like the funniest one. So if these do sound interesting to you, please check them out, because I think they will work for a lot of people. For some reason, they just don't work for me. So, okay. Then I did read a book that works very well for me, and that is Accidentally a Supervillain by H.L. Burke. This is the fourth and final book in the Supervillain Romance Project series. Yeah, and this one, we follow Abigail. She is kind of like the middle child in her family. She has no superpowers. Both of her siblings have superpowers. Her dad has superpowers, and she is quite fine with that. She's quite fine with working her 9-to-5 job at the bank and going home to her cat in the evenings, and when she wants to do something adventurous, she does yoga. So yeah, she is just very happy with doing her thing, and she also has a, I don't know if it's called a condition. I hate using the word condition, but I don't know what it is. It's a type of thing where she sees sound as color, and sound really bothers her. I'll put the word here at the bottom because I do not know how to say this. But she has that, and it does tie into the story later. Because then, while she's working at the bank one day, this supervillain comes in and attacks the place. And through a series of circumstances, she and the superhero who had been at the bank at the time are the only two who are awake. And yeah, during the crossfire between the superhero and the supervillain attacking each other, though, suddenly she has powers that manifest and they hit the hero, knocking him out during the battle. So, later on then, the supervillain, who is named Mako, he ends up, they end up crossing paths again, and he's like, hey, I need your help to, like, reveal her boss at the bank is actually a really bad guy, and if you don't do it, well, I can tell the authorities that technically you're my partner and you helped me defeat the superhero. So she's basically blackmailed into helping him prove that her boss is corrupt. She is very skeptical about this, and things ensue from there. The author describes this series as kind of like a series of, they're kind of like rom-coms, standalone rom-coms, but with a superhero flair to them. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. Abigail is a difficult character for me to like because she's like straight-laced workaholic. I don't really jive with those characters very much. So she was a little hard to get into at first, but I did enjoy her viewpoint and just like seeing the world through her eyes and her different opinions on things and things like that. And then her powers have to do with like the colors that she sees with sound and stuff, which was really cool. The author comes up with such really cool superpowers for her series, because like Mako's is like he can make like these magical like instruments and like block sound, create barriers. It's really interesting, the powers she comes up with for these characters. Mako, I didn't think I would like him at first, but he turned out to be really a sweet guy. Yeah, things happen. It's a pretty short book, so I don't want to say too much more, but I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, and I gave it 4 stars. Really good, really fun, and I finally finished another superhero book in this universe. I think I have like 2 left, and she's of course starting to write a 3rd one, so I'm still behind. Okay. So one of the other ones I read, I'm not doing these in order now. This is just a really short one, so I'm just going to talk about this here, and that is The Witch of Stone Gnome Mountain by Selina R. Gonzalez. I gave this one 5 stars. This is a free short story that you can get when you sign up to the author's newsletter. You can also read this in a physical copy of an anthology, which is called Wags, Woofs, and Wonders. This is like an anthology of kind of like fantastical stories where about dogs, where the dog always survives at the end. So this story has a happy ending. Just putting that out there. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about this one. It's like a fantasy story where this guy needs a potion to heal his sick wife, and in order to do that, he has to go to the Witch of Stone No Mountain because she makes these potions, but in return, in exchange, she always takes somebody's dog. And his dog has been like his lifelong companion for like forever and stuff. So, but he's willing to do anything to save his wife. So it's that journey. But like I said, it has a happy ending. So keep that in mind if you do read the story, because I wasn't sure at first. This story made me cry. I really liked it. Yeah, Selina has such a way with words and stuff. I also mentioned this story when I did my rankings of all of her books, which I will leave a link to that video in the description. I had a fun time with that, even though I did stress myself out. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. I can't say much more. It's a short story after all. But yeah, it was super cute and really, really heartwarming. Okay, let's see. Should we end this video on a good note or a bad note? Okay, let's just do this bad one first, because I did not like this book. Oh my. I'm surprised I even finished it. Actually, I don't know. Anyways, that is October by J. Grace Pennington. This is Christian contemporary. Yeah, it's just Christian contemporary. Anyways, it's about this girl Emily, and she meets this new girl named October at her church one day, and through a series of events they end up becoming friends. I don't know why though. So, yeah, and then October is like hiding this secret that comes to light later on. That's literally the plot of the story. I gave this book 1 star. I hated this book. Okay, it started out pretty typical for like a Christian self-published contemporary story. Yes, there is a type for these books. And I've read enough of them that I know what the type is. It's basically like that small town vibe. You know, small town, everybody knows who they are. Characters live on a farm or like on land. It's a farming type setting. They usually have a cousin or a brother or somebody who's into farming, which this character does, and things like that. So it's a very typical for a Christian contemporary self-published book. Don't ask me why there's a thing, but apparently there is a genre thing for this. So that part was fine. I was fine with it. When I first started reading it, I was like, okay, this is pretty typical for a Christian contemporary like story. I don't really care. Yeah, Emily was a terrible character. Unfortunately, she's the only viewpoint we ever see throughout this whole book. She drove me batty. She has terrible thoughts about people. She's really actually not very nice. And she dumps her friend at the slightest, like, bright, shiny object of another person opportunity all the time. She does realize this, but as far as I can tell, she doesn't really fix it. So, yeah. And as a person who's been on the other end of being dumped by friends because of somebody else, I don't like that in characters. Yeah. October was a fine character. She was kind of like quirky, different type character. She was like compared to Anne from like Anne of Green Gables, so yeah, I could kind of see that. Jax was Emily's cousin. He was probably the best character, so of course he wasn't around that much. Yeah, and the problem I mainly had with this book was the mental health awareness, because it is revealed later. This is kind of slightly spoilers, but yeah. So warning, this is slight spoilers. Yeah, October, it is revealed she does have depression and like bipolar. I think she's bipolar. I think that's what the other one was. And so she has mental illness stuff. So I didn't like how it was portrayed. It was portrayed as someone who has depression and anxiety, I was very put off by the mental illness representation, because it wasn't very well done. It wasn't very positive. It wasn't, not that you romanticize mental illness, that's not what I mean, but I mean that the way it was handled at the end, it did not sit well with me. Yeah, I felt like the author didn't quite know how to handle this topic. I mean, I am in the minority with this book. Like, pretty much most of the reviews on Goodreads are like 5 stars, glowing 5 stars of this book. I am like the minority on this one, so this could just be a me problem. But I didn't feel like the author really knew how to portray the mental illness in a way that was helpful, pointed out the problems, pointed out a solution, and made it satisfying in the end. Mainly because, okay, I'm very annoyed by this, so I'm going to mention this. This is a spoiler for the ending. So, feel free, if you're interested at all in this book, feel free to mute me until the spoiler tag down here goes away. So yeah, spoiler for the ending. If you don't want to hear this, either mute me or just skip on. So yeah, goodbye for now. So, the spoiler for the ending for those of you who have remained, it is revealed later that October commits suicide. I didn't like this angle because at the very end it was dumped in for a shock factor. It made no sense for the way the author was setting up the ending of the story. It made no sense. It was just felt like, it almost felt like she was saying October was special because of her mental illness and therefore she couldn't be in the world, so it was better that she wasn't there. I don't like that. I don't like that messaging. I feel it almost gives an excuse for people that are different with their mental illness and how we view the world and stuff like that. It almost gives us an excuse to just do away with ourselves. I don't think that's what the author was saying. I don't think that's what she intended, but that's how I perceived it and I hated it. Yeah, it's a very hard thing. Mental illness is very hard unless you have experienced it or you like are a counselor or something, or somebody who knows how to research it really well and show multiple sides of it. I just didn't like it. I just felt it was first of all, it was very unnecessary to end the book that way. Secondly, I just feel like it was not represented very well. And it made me feel very angry, and then, like, it also made me feel emotional but then I felt very mad that it made me feel emotional, because it was like, this isn't a genuine emotion. I'm just like sad because it happened, but then I'm also like, this isn't a genuine sadness because I care about the character. This is just because I'm sad about the situation, and you know what I mean? And it's just, I did not like that. I did not like that portrayal. As someone who has some of these problems, like with depression and stuff, I feel like it's a very misrepresented thing. Yeah. I feel that a previous book I read that sort of handled the same topic from a different angle was the title. The title is very long. It was, I don't think it was The Sky and the Sea. No, never mind. I don't need to put the cover up here. I remembered it. So yeah, the title of this book that I read last year that handled sort of the same topic was Love in the Sea and Everything in Between by Brian McBride. And I thought he handled this topic of like depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, things like that. I thought he handled it way better than this author did. And his solution for it was way better than this, and like his explanations and things like that. But I think I preferred the way he did that in that book compared to this one. This one just felt very, very misrepresenting and could be potentially really bad for people who really think down on themselves, and they might interpret this book as you don't belong here, so just go away. And I don't really like that messaging. So I don't think that's what the author intended. I do definitely want to put this out there. I don't think that's what she intended. This could just be a me thing of how I'm viewing it from my viewpoint, but other people may view it the same way. So just wanted to say that. And yeah, so I did not really like that book. So I rage deleted it from my Kindle. So yeah, we are going to move on to Better and Brighter Things, and that is the last book, because I did not want to end on that book, and that is Bound by Death by Jess Drew, which by the title, you're probably thinking that does not sound like a better book to end on, but you know, here we are. This one I gave 4.5 stars. This is a part of the Starry Kingdoms of the Fae series, which is a multi-author series which all deal with Fae. Obviously, it's in the title. But yes, this one is it's an arranged marriage trope, and we follow Amid, I believe is how you say the main character's name. He is basically traded off in marriage by his father, who is basically the god of the underworld. He's basically Hades from Greek mythology, and he's traded off to be married to the king of the Night Court's daughter. And so yeah, it's kind of like a political alliance, I guess, between the two. So he's shipped off to marry her, and she's a very interesting girl. She's very nice, she's very sweet, but she always wears this veil over her face, and he can't like see her face. She warns him not to remove it, and so that's like, that's not at all suspicious. Said, I can't see my wife's face, okay. So yeah, they get married under mysterious circumstances, and things happen from there with the intention of our main female character, whose name I have no clue how to say, so I'm not gonna try. She is basically, told by her father that at a certain time she needs to kill her new husband, because that's not at all like problematic in your future relationships. And yeah, things go from there. I don't want to say too much more about this. I didn't really know much more than what the back says anyways when I went into it. I think it's better to almost go in slightly blind to this one. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. This is my first book by this author. I definitely want to try more. I really like her writing style. This story is also very unique. It mixes like Egyptian and Greek mythology together with like fae stuff on the side, so like fantasy as well. And I really liked that mix. It was very unique. It gave a very different flair to it, because I've read other books that have like a Greek mythology aspect to it, but I haven't read too many with Egyptian. So it was interesting seeing those two like combined together. This is also a gender flipped retelling of Eros and Psyche, I believe. It's a Greek myth. So yeah, because I did start noticing that when I was reading it. I was like, is this a gender flip retelling of this? So then I looked it up, and yes, it is. Because I recognized some beats from the Greek tale, especially the 1.0 I was telling Amid, don't do that, just don't. Oh no, you just did it. That was really hard, because it was like, oh no, this is not going to end well, don't do it, just don't. But he did it, so you know, because characters never listen to me. Even my own don't listen to me. Anyways, yeah, so I really enjoyed this. I really liked both our main characters. Even I liked the girl, I can't say her name for the life of me, but I really liked her. I really liked Amid. They were both very just like really sweet, kind people who just wanted to be cared about and loved, but both of their parents were utterly awful, so they didn't get that. So they found it in each other, and I just really liked that. It might be a bit insta-lovey, but it's a kind of a novella, so it's really short anyways. And also, I don't know, it worked for these characters, the way their personalities were. It worked. It also worked to show that they were trying in their new marriage, even though, like, you know, he couldn't see her face and stuff like that. Most of the time it was dark because they live in the night court, so it was like, okay, we can't even see each other most of the time. There's one, possibly two, because one of them's pretty vague, fade to black moments between a married couple. I was totally fine with it because of the way it was done. Nothing's shown or detailed or anything like that. It pretty much just like ends the chapter there and we just move on. So yeah, I was fine with it because they were married, nothing was detailed. If you like different like mythologies like mixed together, retellings of Greek myths, very unique world building, and two like cinnamon roll type characters who've basically been like, when one of them has basically been like told to kill the other. If you like those types of stories, I think you'd really like this. I'm definitely going to be trying more books from this author because she has a lot of them, and several of them sound really good. So definitely going to be trying more from her, and I really like this book, and eventually someday I am going to get a physical copy because I enjoyed it that much. And yeah, that is it. Those are all the ebooks I read in June. Sorry for the long-winded video, or at least hopefully by the time I edit it, it won't be as long, but you know, who really knows at this point. But yeah, thank you guys so much for waiting so patiently for this part 2 of this video for my June reading wrap-up. Overall, I promise July's will be next week, and then I'll hopefully be able to do 1 or 2 other types of videos by the end of this month that aren't just reading wrap-ups. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I will see you next time. Bye!